So I'm going to use these two brushes. I'm not worried about using smaller brushes because I don't care so much about detail, especially in a 45-minute painting. The purpose of this painting is to show you how to break it down. There's the first step, the first couple steps of your drawing like we practiced with basic shapes and just major divisions like we can see here, but then also how to manipulate the paint, okay? That's the purpose of this painting. It has nothing to do with being a masterpiece. Everybody okay with that? Is that like a fair deal? I'm going to do my best in 45 minutes, and we'll see how good that really is. Now, let's look at the reference here. The first things that you need to be able to do is to get your shapes down, okay? I'm going to use this brush. This brush right here, if you look at it, it is called a filbert. And the camera won't focus, but it says filbert. That's the shape of the bristles plus the thickness of the bristle itself, okay? And this is a new brush. What I like to do, I like to just get it wet, okay? So I'm putting it in the water right now, okay? Just get it wet and just squeeze it out, squeeze the water out. Touch it with a paper towel just to dry it out. What that does is it makes it so that the paint doesn't get up inside and then dry out, okay? This metal part right here is called the ferrule, like Will Ferrell, okay? And if you get paint inside there, then the brush turns into mature layout with crappy ones. Dang it. They do this. That's not awesome, okay? See the difference? It forces this bristles out like this, okay? So that's like good as firewood now, all right? So this brush, we want to be able to keep our brushes clean. They will stain. Don't panic. These are white nylon bristles. They're synthetic. They will pick up the color. If you dive right into, blue, your bristles will be blue, and it's okay. Okay? Give me an example of this, just so that you don't completely lose your marbles when you start to use them. You see that brush? It's got a little bit on the side right here, but the bristles are still separate. They're not glued together. They're soft and they're clean, and it's stained. It's okay. All right? So don't panic. They'll stain. Okay, now this first painting you're doing is a limited palette. You're using, so here's at least some of your palette here. Okay, we'll show the whole camera. There it is. There's everybody. This one right here, so these two are browns. This is a darker brown. This is a warmer brown. This one's got a lot of red in it. It's called burnt sienna. It's the second one in. If you need to open your palette so you can see it in front of you, be my guest. Absolutely do it. Okay? Instead of taking class time and telling you all the names of the colors, I will take a picture and make a graphic and have them all be labeled so you know, okay? And I'll post that. But you've got the empty space in the corner, right? That's where black will live one day. I didn't even give it to you. Such a mean teacher. Didn't even give it to you. I have it, but we're not going there yet. This one is burnt umber. This is burnt sienna. We're going to use burnt sienna, and we're going to use, so there's three blues here. This lighter one that everybody loves, okay? And then there's one here that looks to be a little brighter blue, and then this one here looks to be a little closer to violet. Can you see that? There's a slight difference between these two. They just mix a little bit differently, so that's why I give them to you, okay? What we're going to use is the burnt sienna and the, let's see, cobalt blue. That's the one that's in the middle, in between the two, okay? So burnt sienna, cobalt blue. And all I'm doing here, I'm going to grab some of this, I'm going to put it in my lid, And when I come over here, I'm going to break all the rules. I didn't even clean my brush. And I'm going to put that there. And I'm going to do a little mechanical mixing. I'm going to stir it together, right? And that is pretty darn dark. Would you agree? Yeah, it's way dark. That's what we want to start with. And to do what's called, the very first step in your painting is called an underpainting. Okay? And it's fairly self-explanatory. It is the painting underneath your painting, which would imply that you're going to paint over this first step, which is entirely true. Your underpainting belongs under. Okay? Now, this is really thick paint, and I want it to be thinner. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of my turpenoid, okay, some of this, and I'm going to grab some of this, and I'm going to put it over here. And you can already see how much quicker it's moving. Because I want it to be like ink. And sometimes you get big globs of paint in your brush, and that's okay. You just kind of squeeze them out. But you get this nice dark color, just like that. And put this bad habit of using my mouth to hold brushes, and I can't do that anymore. This dang mask in the way. All right, so I got my palette off to the side, and it's very loaded. It's got lots going on in this brush. Come on. All right, it's a big brush, and I need to get this image here. So I need to get some basic shapes. I just want to make where the stick is, so it's going to come down here like this and then come across here. Good stuff. Now, my bird here, this is a cardinal. The cardinal, the head is kind of right in the middle, right here, and its body is like here, and its tail comes down here like this. Okay? Maybe its head is like a shape like this. I'm not worried about details at all. What else can I put in? If I'm trying to make this look as close to this as possible, what are some other things I need to put in? You think? Sure. I mean, I can. Yeah, they're going to be here, but remember, I'm going to paint over it, so I think that we got a pretty good idea of where they are. But that is a valuable thing to have in there. What about like that division right there? Light and dark in the background. Maybe some of you are thinking it. So this is going to come down here like this, and it'll come down here and then go over there. I have no idea what that is. I don't really care. Okay. But now I've got this darker color, and this is a little bit mottled. It's not completely dark, but it's pretty dark. And I can make it lighter later, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come in here like this, and I'm just going to start laying in that dark value, just getting the darks in. And I'm going to mix and get some more turpenoid in the paint so that it really spreads quickly. And I can leave some indication of where that stick is, but I'm not really, I mean, how important is that stick in this picture? You're probably thinking, well, it's in the picture, so maybe it's kind of important, but it sounds like it's not important. Maybe that's what he wants me to say, but is that the conversation that's happening in your head? A little bit. I'm going to break it down like this. What's the picture about? Is it about the stick or is it about the bird? It's about the bird. Is that stick like the one and only stick in the world? There's no stick police. They're not coming around and be like, excuse me, you painted the wrong stick. That's a violation. No, it's a stick. Who cares? You know? So I can paint right through that stick and not feel bad about it because I know that it's going to run right underneath the body of that bird. So I'm good. And I'm just going to bring this down, and we're just scrubbing it in there. Just getting all this paint out of my brush. Working it into the whites of the canvas, but you want to try and get rid of the white of the canvas as fast as possible. But Mr. Hilliard, the background of my painting is white. Yeah, you only leave it when it's watercolor. You always want to have paint. If it's white, and leave a little bit of an indication of where the body of this bird is. It's kind of a darker shape there. And you're like, well, that's like way too dark for that. It's okay. Okay. You see why we're not putting detail in? See why that would get really weird really fast? Okay, I mean, we're painting this picture and it's like, what a disaster kind of thing. Okay, I still have enough information. I know where the bird's at. Okay, this looks much brighter than this, because it is, but it's not white. Okay, this is white. This is like 30% gray, right? So I have my palette here, and I've used a good portion of this paint, right? And now I'm going to clean my brush. And so what I'm doing when I'm cleaning my brush, I'm not jamming the bristles down. I'm going to show you with this one. So here's the bottom of my water container, the back of my hand. I'm not jamming the bristles down so that you know, I'm not hitting them like this. I'm doing this in the bottom of the brush, in the bottom of the water, like this or like this. Okay, I'm not jamming the bristles down. Does that make sense? I'm going like this. So I'm pushing water through the bristles. Okay. So that's what's happening here. You can kind of see how I'm laying it down. You want another rule that's like the unbreakable rule, like you can break it and you'll be at home and I won't be there to yell at you. But if you want your brush to fall apart really quick, just let it soak in the old hot tub here. Okay? You leave this in here, and the little voice in your head that looks an awful like Mr. Clean. You guys know who Mr. Clean is? There you go. That's what Mr. Kidder calls me. All right. Never, ever, ever leave your brushes in your water. They live like this if you're not holding on to them. Okay? They go across your water container. If you don't have a water container, like this is, Western Family fat-free yogurt. Okay, and it's been living here for a long time. If you don't have a container like that, I'll give you one. Okay, and you can take it home. They're super lovely. They're good for leftovers. No, I'm joking. Just have it be a dedicated thing, and it's just what you use. Okay, don't recycle it back into the usable dishes. What I'm going to do here, I'm going to take this, and I'm going to add just a little bit of white to it. And I'm going to get this value. And it's still quite dark in comparison to white. I need some more turpenoid. Turpenoid works really well for underpaintings. Once you start to stack colors that you want to keep, then you can start working in some linseed oil. I'm going to put this in here, start to. And You see why I'm putting like a little drop cloth down, like this, down here, is you don't want to be dancing around it the whole time. And be patient with yourself as your first painting here. Please be patient with yourself. It's not going to be a masterpiece, okay? But I do want you to enjoy it. It does not matter what it turns out like, says your teacher, okay? I'm actually going to take like just straight linseed oil here and just kind of stir this up. Or not linseed oil, turpenoid. And that gives me that darker value there. So here is, so the turpenoid here is making it dry quite quickly, which is pretty amazing. Come back in here and kind of build that. The more you touch it, the more it can go south. We'll blend that here in just a minute, that edge, and we'll bring this stick back in a minute. Okay. Now I'm going to add just a little bit more blue to this, and brown and white. And you can play with, I mean, I want you to, you know, maybe have like no more than like a 60-40 split on the blues and the blacks, or blues and browns. Okay? I don't want you to be able to look at this and say, "Oh, that's blue and that's brown." I don't want you to deal with color. This is just value. Now this is really warm, okay? Oh, I gotta hurry. It's a little darker here than it is up here. So I'm going to start to put in a little bit more value in here. I'm going to bring this down in here. Now I'm going to take this brush, it's clean. I'm just going to use like a corner of it. And do just a little bit of blending. What's in the background? What makes up all of this? It's kind of a trick question. Not really. We don't know, do we? So we better not make it into something back here. You gotta make it look like you don't know. And it's okay to not know. I'm just softening some of these edges and making them a little less descriptive. And see here, I've just got some straight white, and this is all very wet, so I'm going to put this here, and the more I work it, the more it's going to blend into the wet paint that's underneath. It's called wet and wet. Now, my personal preference with painting is I enjoy seeing the brush strokes. That's not to say that you guys need to adopt that opinion, okay? That's my opinion, and it is opinion. If you get excited about something that is completely photorealistic, go for it, okay? I like to let it breathe a little bit. It might sound good, but sound like something that you want to do, and that's fine. So I've got too much paint on my brush now, so I'm going to get my paper towel and clean it up and soften up this stuff here. And as I'm painting, if you have a question, you're just like, that is so not what I thought was right, then for sure ask a question, okay? Now, what I have here, we're still working on the background. It's a little lighter in these areas. It's not nearly that dark. Oh, and by the way, if you can't tell already, there's going to be major differences between this and this. That's okay. Okay? All right. My mask is trying to fight back all of a sudden. So I need a slightly darker color, because if I take this and put this right here, it's going to be like, whoa, way too bright. Okay? But maybe I can soften it. Now, why do I need to get the background in this particular picture all dealt with before I do the foreground? Any guesses? Say it louder.
So you don't ruin the bird.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like somebody wants to paint a landscape, which many of you will, and you got this big, beautiful tree. Well, it's probably the darkest thing in the image. And here I just said, you need to do the dark stuff first. Well, the dark stuff with your underpainting, absolutely, you need to put those darks in. But the light stuff, it needs to be not painted around it. You know, like if you're painting a sky, the sky doesn't go around a tree. It's behind it, and it shows through. So there's some exceptions to the rule of always painting dark to light. Okay. So I'm putting this in, and then as I do this, as I blend with it, it's starting to mix. It's mixing with the brown that was laid down, or the dark color that was laid down before. And the more I touch it and play with it, the more it becomes dark. So now I've got this a little brighter than I want over there, and it's hard to see up there, but maybe the video will pick it up. So I'm going to mix up some more dark value, and I'll put this dark back in. And there's a little tiny bit behind the tail, right underneath the stick, a little bit behind them here. I haven't painted in a long time, so I'm glad to do this today. Hard edges there. And if there's a part of the painting that just totally bugs you and you're like, I've been waiting all period for you to deal with that and you never did. If there's some part of it that does that to you, holler. Say, hey, tell me. Stop. What is going on? Okay. Now I need to think about my focal point. As far as contrast goes, how does it relate to a focal point? We talked about this a couple times ago, maybe even last time. A focal point usually has what amount of contrast? High. What's the focal point in this picture? The bird. What part of the bird? Definitely it's the face. So we want a lot of contrast here. If we want the brightness of this beak in his face to show up, it is a male bird, just so you know, then I might want some dark to be right here behind the head. Okay? So I'm going to put this dark back in, right in here. All right, that's lovely. you're going to be tempted to not use, you're going to want to use all your colors. Just don't do that to yourself right now, okay? Do that on the next painting. You just work in dark and light. One year I didn't do a very good job of explaining that we just want the values and not the colors, and I had a bunch of kids that painted with blue and brown, and then it mixed them together, and it was just blue and brown in the picture. We missed it. See, you guys are not the only ones trying to get better at something. Guess what, teachers? They get to work at being better at stuff all the time. All the time. Okay. What should we do next? Anybody have any guesses? Because it's just a guess. I haven't told you. The stick? We could do the stick next. If we need to work dark to light, how do we do the stick? What should we put in first? Or next? Because we know where it is. It's going to come right through here. What are we missing right here that's going to make this stick work? Yeah, that's exactly right. We need to put the darks back in. Here's a little thing that's kind of weird, and I only know kind of a little bit about the chemistry of it. Dark colors don't stick real great to light colors. Remember dealing with that? It can be frustrating. So if I took a canvas and I painted one side perfectly pure white, brand new brush, brand new paint, perfectly white, and then I painted this other side as dark as I could go with as many colors as I could squeeze in there. Dark, okay? And if I took two brushes that were perfectly clean and I got the same white paint and the same dark paint on them, okay? So pretend white paint on the white side, dark paint on the dark side, okay? If I went with this dark brush over here to the light and made a brush stroke, we would think that I would leave a big dark line, a big dark paintbrush mark on this side of perfectly white, wet paint. But in actuality is just a little bit might stick, and you'll just pick up a bunch of white paint over here on your brush, because white paint sticks to the dark paint. Dark paint doesn't stick as well to the light paint. That's another reason why you start dark and work light, is because if I take my white brush and go to the black side, I get a real nice white brush mark. So that's why we go dark to light, because everything sticks to the darker color. Make sense? So it begs to address the elephant in the room as all of you watch Netflix and you watch good old Bob Ross, right? Everybody knows who Bob Ross is. He's got better hair than me, okay? And thank you for laughing, the two of you that did. I used to watch Bob when I was a kid, before I took any painting classes, elementary school, whatever. I used to watch him and I loved it. He was definitely an inspiration to us all, right? So many times he would start his canvas and he'd say, I've got liquid white, whatever that is. I don't even know. And he's got it all over his canvas to start with. I just thought that was what you're supposed to do. I don't even know how that's supposed to work. And what is the brilliance that man had? He knew how to manipulate oil paint to make it so that he could do a whole painting in 30 minutes or an hour on TV. Okay? But he's bending the rules. Traditional oil paint, you always work dark to light. Bob always worked back to front, top to bottom. Every single one of his paintings. I haven't seen them all, but I'm pretty confident that that's true. Back to front, top to bottom. That's not always the case. Okay, so I'm teaching you some differences. It is by no means am I telling you that Bob did things wrong. Okay, but it's not the way I'm teaching you. Okay, this is traditional oil paint that's not been manipulated with chemicals to make it so that it would work using 2-inch wide brushes. Okay, so dark to light, then back to front in that order. So the next step, if I want to do this stick, oh, I have a thought here. The stick is on top of the tail. Can you guys see that? So maybe we should do the bird first, minus the feet. You okay with that? Or at least the tail? So that when we put this in, I'm not trying to dance around the stick that I just done to try and get the tail to work. So let's do that. I need some dark, so I'm just getting more blue and more brown. Stir it together. I'm not going to thin it because thicker paint also sticks better. Sticky paint on this background, and I'm just going to, I've switched my brush. I'm no longer using the filbert, okay? This is one that's called a bright square flat brush. And I'm just going to put the dark in here. And if you can do it in one brush stroke, then that is by far and away the best way to do it. Now, I've got that dark down there, and you can barely see it. But I've got little pieces of white coming through the canvas. That's okay. It's going to break it up. There's no part of this bird that's exactly perfectly one color. It changes up. Okay? I'm going to put some of the other darks that I see in the bird, kind of on his wing right here. Kind of comes around over here, underneath his tail a little bit. Because remember, I can put the lights back in over the top, so I don't even care about this. Now there's some smaller details here. I'm just mapping it in. Just putting those darks in. And you're like, yeah, Mr. Hilliard, that looks exactly like your bird. We'll get there. All right. I'm going to try and get this done in about 10 minutes. Oh my gosh. Do you guys have faith in me that I can do this in 10 minutes?
Yeah.
Well, that's good that somebody does. Because I'm not sure. I'm not sure. All right, here we go. So now we can do a little bit of the detail in the tail. We don't have to overcook it here. Just like, so when I do this, okay, I'm loading my brush like this so that I get a real sharp edge. You can see that? Get a real sharp edge. Now this next stroke, I have to pay attention to how hard I'm going to push. And I'm going to make sure that so I'm holding my brush clear up here like this, and I'm just going to use this stroke. I'm going to lay it sideways, so like this. Okay, like this, and I'm going to prop up my hand and just pull this towards me, going sideways, almost like like the edge of a knife. Because I've got this bright edge right down both sides and a little bit of detail on the bottom. It's not necessarily an outline, but did that show up? Hey, look at that. Reload my brush. Sure, right? I want you to see, I don't know if can you see how dark that edge is? It's picked up the dark paint a little bit. So if I were to go back in, so you can see up here, see how that dark paint transferred? That's why you have to go back every time you do a brush stroke like that. You have to go back and reload your brush. I want to get that much done. Because I don't want to overdo it. Clean my brush. Some of these are a little strong. Just bring them up here and get a little bit of variation in that tail, and done deal. Okay, now I can do the stick, right? Dark color. Again, I'm only using the cobalt blue and the burnt sienna. That's it. Now I am going to add just a little bit of linseed oil. It's the first time I've used it because I want it to be thinner, but I want it to stick. Spectacular. I'm a little jealous you guys are going to paint. Chances are good you got better paper towels there than I have here. All right. Now, here's the next rule. As you come closer to the viewer, so this compared to this stick is going to have greater detail and greater contrast because it's closer to the viewer's eye. All right? So I'm going to come in and I'm going to start making a color or a value that is quite a bit brighter in value than what I've used so far. And I'm just going to start to put this in. I'm going to use like the side of the brush. I'm just going to do a technique called scumbling, where you just let it just kind of skip and land wherever. You're like, okay, great. Starting to maybe look like a stick. Maybe. Clean my brush because I need to go brighter and wider. Now I'm going to take some pure white. Okay, right on my brush like this. And there's a little stick right here. I'm not really worried about that. And I'm just going to put this really bright stuff in here. And less is more with this. Okay, fine, we'll put that little stick in. See how it brought it up closer to you? It separated it from the background. All right, let's do this bird in 6 minutes. Oh my gosh. Okay. I'm going to add a little linseed oil to my paint because I want it to be just a little stickier when you're dealing with wet and wet. All right, let's rough this out. So It's kind of the top of his head here. It kind of comes to a point. I have to decide where that's going to come from. So this is kind of back from the drawing. Beak is there, and either you're all watching intently or I put you all to sleep. One of the two. Some people say it's relaxing to watch people paint. When you're the one painting, I promise you it's not relaxing. Little variations in the values. Do you guys want to know what I mean when I say value? Little variations. I'm just using the corner of this brush. I should use a smaller brush, but I'm not going to. I seriously just want you guys to have fun with this first painting. Okay? It doesn't matter. You'll hold on to it forever because it's your very first painting, but it's fun to hold on to so that you can see where you've come from. It's only the focal point, guys. Let's not stress out about it. Using too big of a brush, trying to go too fast. Oh my gosh. It's a little too big. You guys won't judge me. Yeah, he's really sad that his beak is too big. We'll live. Come on, stick. Yeah. Okay. Now, to make this bird come alive, you need to do one thing. You need to make that eye look like it's working. And how you do that is you need the little white dot. And if you do that with a brush, it will not go well. Okay. It will not go well. So you're like, well, then what do I use? I'm not advocating finger painting, it just happened to work. Okay. Use the tiniest tip of the other end of your brush, this end. Okay, and just get the littlest bit of paint on there. That's infinitely too big. So what if it's too big? How do I fix it? Oh my gosh, who knows? We're almost done. Our timing is great. A nice clean dry brush. And lift it out. Pretty magical. And there's a little dot. Probably a little bright, but it's okay. Needs one little highlight on the edge of its wing. I'm actually going to put a little highlight on the edge of its head right here and across its back. Okay, spectacular. I'm going to show you how to clean this stuff up. I'm going to be done with this. Your number one rule, starting in on this first canvas, don't compare your first painting to anybody else's. Don't compare it to this. Don't compare it to anything you see on Netflix or TV or wherever. It's just you. If you're not having fun, put the brush down, walk away. It's okay. If you're frustrated, it's okay. If you're having fun, it's okay. But let's focus on trying to have fun with it. All right? So, let's grab the lights, please.